But for now, back to you, Carrie.
Thanks, Kat. And now on BBC News, it's time for your questions answered. We've been receiving hundreds of questions from viewers confused about the new quarantine rules for travellers returning to the UK from Spain. And with us to help answer those questions, independent travel expert Wendy Haynes, who's in Ralston-on-Dove, and consumer expert Jane Hawkes. Thank you both very much. And just before I put all the questions to you, a couple of lines of breaking coming in, which are relevant, I think, from Germany. Germany saying it's warning potentially against travel to some parts of Spain over the virus. That is Germany warning against travel to parts of Spain over the virus. That's just the one line at the moment on that. And also the RKI Health Institute saying we don't know if we're seeing the beginning of a second coronavirus wave in Germany. It is possible. So obviously concern there. And let's move on with the discussion on travel in the context of that. Wendy, to you first. This one from Matthew in Camberley says, I booked a flight, separate hotel to Barcelona, leaving on the 15th of August. Both were booked prior to the pandemic. The hotel has cancelled my booking, but EasyJet say they're still flying. My travel insurance is invalid. Does EasyJet have to give me a refund? And if not, do I have any rights?
The answer is they don't have to refund at the moment because the flights are actually operating, although that situation could change. 2 weeks in travel terms is a long time away. I would approach EasyJet and ask them if you could move your flight rather than just potentially lose your money at this stage. If you're thinking that you're not wanting to travel, that would be my best advice.
Thank you. Now, Jane, this one from Andrew Shaw. Due to the nature of my frontline key worker job, I've had 5 COVID-19 tests. These involve strict procedures at a test centre. I drive to it, swabs are taken. On each occasion, I've had an email within 24 hours that clearly and reassuringly states that when I had the test, I did not have the virus. My question is, if these tests are accurate, why can't I arrive home, self-isolate for as long as it takes to get a test, and then return to a non-isolated life if the test comes back negative? Yours, frustratingly, Andrew. Now that also, Jane, I would say is a question we've had from so many people. If I have a test, can I not just get on with my life?
Yeah, and it's a frustration I share, and I can see that from Andrew. But unfortunately, quarantine is quarantine. So it doesn't matter at the moment, testing's not been taken into account. So it doesn't matter whether you have had testing, you do have antibodies or whatever, you will still be subject to the same rules when you return and will have to do quarantine. It does depend where you're going to, so keep an eye on the FCO website because you can check out the restrictions for actually travelling to, because of course there are exemptions. So there are some countries you can come back and you won't have to quarantine anyway, but unfortunately as well, key workers are not exempt from quarantine, which you would imagine maybe they would be.
Oh, well, that's probably not the answer that Andrew wanted, but thanks for the straight answer anyway. Wendy, this one from Scott came in via Twitter. I'm a foster carer going to Menorca in a week's time. Can I be exempt from the quarantine on my return?
I think at this stage, unfortunately, there's a very good chance that you won't be going on your holiday, to be honest. However, to answer the question, I do believe that the quarantine restrictions advise that key workers don't travel if there's that quarantine restriction in place anyway. So I would be looking at maybe changing or cancelling your holiday, unfortunately.
More bad news. Now, this one, Amelia asks, Jane, I'm due to go to the Balearics soon, but I have coronavirus antibodies. Do I still need to self-isolate when I get back?
Well, again, this links into the previous question, and the fact this is something that is not taken into consideration at the moment. But you can't actually go to the islands at the moment either. So, but the Spanish government are appealing that, so it could be that that changes. So where we stand at the moment, just keep a close eye on what's going on, because you may may not be able to travel there anyway, and therefore you'll have to go down the lines of trying to get your refund or rebook, and depending on what kind of holiday you've got, whether it's a package or you've booked things separately. And if you do go and it is a country that that you do have to isolate when you come back from and go into quarantine, then that's what you'll have to do, regardless of any testing or any antibodies that you've got.
Thank you. Now, Pamela asks, Wendy, this is one for you, I think. I've got a flight booked from Friday the 31st of July till the 10th of August. Can I still go? I can isolate for 2 weeks when I get back. Ryanair haven't cancelled the flights. And similarly, Danny from Albury in the West Midlands asks, if my flight to Mallorca still takes place this weekend and I travel on it, what are the potential consequences for me?
Okay, I think you need to keep an eye on those airline websites, because there's a chance that your flight will be cancelled, and that could be at very short notice. But also you need to check your travel insurance. If you're travelling anywhere against Foreign Office advice, then your travel insurance is very likely to become invalid, and we wouldn't recommend that you travel anywhere without valid travel insurance.
This one also on insurance from Jackie Baker. Jane, will my insurance accept my claim for flight refunds to Tenerife if the government has said not to go, but my flight is still going with Ryanair?
Well, if the flight's still going, then you're in a bit of a difficult position. You can check your own travel insurance, but they're very restricted now. There's very limited cover. So it depends when you actually took that insurance policy out. If it was early March, then potentially there's some kind of leeway there. But generally, if you're on a package holiday, then you're covered by the package travel arrangements, and therefore you would be entitled to that refund if the FCO advises not to travel to that particular destination. However, if you book things separately, like flights and hotels, then I'm afraid that you're subject to that airline or carrier or operator's terms and conditions, and you'll have to liaise with them as to what you can actually do. And that could be a rebook, but it would probably not be a refund.
Wendy, this one from a very frustrated viewer who says, how does, for those returning and those travelling to Spain in the next few weeks, how does the government expect them to live on no wages for 14 days? Also, for those wanting to cancel a holiday, they will be penalised with cancellation fees. Ryanair not refunding flights, so these will be lost. More money down the drain. I don't know how the Prime Minister expects working class people to adhere to these rules, implemented at very short notice without compensation. I would like the question asked also as to why the PM let holidays go ahead and rush to open the borders, and now the working class public are paying for it.
I feel your pain, honestly. And things change at such short notice. This time last week, flights were starting taking off and people were having lovely times on their holidays, and we were starting to see some green shoots of sort of normality. However, I believe the government goes on advice, and that can change hourly, and they have to protect us. So things can change, unfortunately, and there may be costs involved with that. So I think the main message is if you're planning on travelling anywhere this year, you have to be prepared that those plans may change.
Wendy and Jane, thanks for all your wisdom and your warnings. We'll see you again soon. The government is dragging